which will be in fact moderated by Mr. N. Srinivasan, who's a sector expert, just joined us for the launch of the MFI directory. I'm going to request him to please join us on stage once again, and I'll also invite on stage the speakers for this plenary session, Mr. Aloysius Fernandez, Member Secretary at Myrada, Ms. S. Leivang, CGM at NABARD, Mr. Shantanu Pendsey, CGM, State Bank of India, and Mr. C S Reddy, MD and CEO of APMAS, to please join us on stage now for this plenary session on 3 decades of SHG financing, learnings, and the way forward.
Al, you are second from the other side. Srini, you are the first from the other side.
Requesting everyone to please stay with us, get settled, and we'll now begin the next session. I'll hand it over to Mr. N. Srinivasan to take it forward from here.
Fulfilling meal, also had 3-4 helpings of different desserts, and then we are being asked to serve one more course at the end of it. I think it is unfair for Gigi to do it to all of us, but then we have the master chef here with us, and of course the assistant to the master chef sitting at the other extreme, 2 veterans of the sector. We hope to make the meal and the offering a bit more wholesome. Since we are far into our session already, by about 45 minutes roughly now, and the brief is we will conclude in about an hour's time roughly from now. I won't do an elaborate introduction of any of this, because people right from the beginning of where the program began, like Al and Prakash ji just before now, they talked about where it began, what happened, the original thought process, that an accidental foray and a committed innovation got scaled up, and now we are where we are. When we look back, there are 2 things. We celebrate this entire journey of last 30 years. At the same time, look at what lessons we learned from this as we go forward. Had SHG movement been a complete solution to all our problems of dealing with the vulnerable, whether it is financial access or livelihoods, and the way we have done, does it offer any clues as we go into the future? What I intend to do is to initially give about 5 minutes to each of our panelists here to talk about what's their thought process, coming from the experience of how they have seen the movement all these years. If they want to take less time than 5 minutes, they are welcome. But then some of them have 40 years behind them. I don't see how they will compact that in 5 minutes. I think I will give Mr. Leivang a go, being associated with the, the oldest institution which influenced banking sector to come into SHG financing. Yeah.
Yeah. NABARD's initiatives, NABARD's role in the spread of the SHG bank linkage program. I think our earlier speakers are luminaries have most eloquently brought it out. In fact, what started out as the tool for bringing together the formal banking sector with the resource poor and unbanked rural women, today has become the multi-faceted platform for empowerment of rural women. And who would have thought in 1992 that these would be the offshoots of the SHG bank linkage program? One, I think the strength of the SHG bank linkage program lies in the exercise of group dynamics that happens in an SHG, which allows each member to participate in and to imbibe skills of negotiation, skills of planning, and skills of decision making. Now, NABARD, as the facilitator of the self-help group bank linkage program, from the policy perspective, has been pushing for flexibility in its approach. 2 decades after the self-help group bank linkage program, when NABARD took a relook at the journey so far and the learnings which were gained, it came out with SAG 2. So SAG 2, we had the 2 or 3 major changes which were introduced in the SAG bank linkage program. One was that cash credit limits should also be sanctioned to SAGs. These were to be for a period of 3 to 5 years based on the projected savings of the same period. Second, financial inclusion had taken strides in the country with the directions of the RBI. So SAG members were encouraged to open individual bank accounts, and they were supposed to graduate to their individual micro enterprises. And number 3, the JLGs were to be formed within the SAGs so that forward-looking members, active members within an SAG would be ready to take up financing for their income-generating purposes. Now, where are we today? As has been said earlier, I think by our DMD, sir, we have seen tremendous growth, I think from 29 lakh, which was sanctioned in 1992. We are looking at a loan portfolio of about 1.5 lakh in respect of SAGs. I think we need to appreciate the role that banks have played. We always see the glass half full, or half empty rather. We need to appreciate, I think, especially the role of commercial banks. See, the supply side, demand side architecture has been built. NGOs, NABARD, and so many agencies. There is so much which we can do up to a point. The supply side has to become and met by banks, and especially commercial banks. Their share is, I think, around 60% in the credit linkage of SAGs, followed by the RRBs at about 30%. Cooperative banks still have to make their mark in the SAG bank linkage. But yes, let us applaud the role that is played by banks so far. Of course, much has to be done. Yet, a lot of ground is yet to be covered. Now the SAG bank linkage program is largely NRLM-led. So it is NRLM-centric. They have put in place a huge architecture of the village level organizations. They have the second rung organizations, they have the federations, and so many other structures have been put in place. Processes have been designed. So the demand for credit naturally has grown up, and I think the supply and demand mismatch is what is plaguing the self-help group movement in the country. The central government, in fact, was seized of the matter. If I recall correctly, I think 2019, we now have the Chaturvedi committee, which is recommending that a separate specialized financing agency may be set up to supplement the credit linkage facilities that is there in the system. So that is what we are looking at. These are the changes that have been happening in the sector, and as has been said earlier by our speakers, innovations have to happen. We at NABARD are looking at many new ideas. We are looking into it, we are going to try them out, and yes, there is always room for growth. We also have to learn to listen to what has happened in the past, and see that we do what is best required according to the need, according to the demand, and according to what the clients at the ground will be telling us in the days to come. Yeah.
Thank you. I think, the involvement of NABARD has been one of the game changers. Like Al would say, you started at the 1992 formal involvement of NABARD in this. Now there is someone who is going to take it back another 7 years. Al, you have a go.
I like to stand and talk.
Stand there, okay.
I cannot sit. Excuse me, I'm sorry I have to stand and talk. It's very difficult for me to sit. Srinivasan, esteemed members, so good friends and friends. Yeah, I'm glad that you saw Rangarajan. You missed P.R. Naik, Koteya. You missed Nanda. And of course, Bakshi was, you heard. I've been present with Bakshi when he came out crying out of meetings where the features of SAGs were diminished. There's a gentleman called Nanda, called Chintala, who was experienced all this thing, and he's sitting here quietly. So I think that he has a challenge to carry it forward, and I'm going to say it now itself. What are you going to do future, Mr. Chintala, Mr. Pati, and all of these who gave a talk a little while, because towards the end you may not get a chance. First, I would tell you, I don't think we can revive the SAG bank linkage program. This financial system is gone its own way. What can you do? You led it, okay? Lead it again, but lead it through NABFINS. That's it. Lead the way through. That was what NABFINS was started, and I happened to be the glorious chairman of NABFINS, founding it. That was the vision. Let NABFINS lead the MFI sector. And I will tell you straight, you are lending to NABFINS at 10%. Oh, 9%. Am I right? You lent me at 10%, you're gone to 9, okay. Now, I've challenged NABFINS to lend at 16 to 17%. Bring it down from what it is today. You set the cap. Don't give me this rubbish that there'll be competition among MFIs for interest rate. There is no competition. If you want to set the cap, NABFINS should set the cap. Do it. And I've told your current chairman that also, who gave me, Naik, Ranganath is NABFINS chairman. When he was chief secretary, he gave me, when I was in NABFINS, 30 crores equity on condition that the margin will not be more than 7%. I told him, now you're chairman, keep it. Secondly, please continue to fund the SAG program, to train the self-help groups. And here the challenge is to the NGOs. I will tell you, all the SAGs that Myrada started, members are no longer poor people. If they were poor, we would have been a failure. Because they got finance on loan and they got other support. Today, they are not lending. And therefore, they are graduated. I'll come to that. But there are poorer people who have not had the facility of joining SAGs. What are the NGOs doing? Poverty is like an onion. You've got to keep peeling. NGOs have failed. And also they have failed because the finance for this is also diminishing. I think that's a challenge we need to face. And the third challenge is this. NABARD has been very good at giving us money to train the self-help groups. Of course, it was not financial literacy. It was much more than financial literacy. We have published training manuals, how to meet, how to discuss, how to talk. We called it institutional capacity building, how to make decisions, how to apply sanctions. Institutions cannot run without this, and SAGs were an institution. I'm asking NABARD, what money have you provided to people who are graduating from SAGs, who are going as tiny entrepreneurs, who are taking larger loans of 2 lakhs, who need support after the loan is given, who need support for skills, new skills, who need support for management? You are not looking at that today. I am challenging NABARD, you please do this. I started it in Sanghamitra. Bigger loans from our own CSR. I am now giving grants with their contribution when they want to take bigger loans, when they want to need new skills. NABARD, please start a line on this matter. So these are my 3 challenges to NABARD in the future. Chintala, Ajay, and the present district must continue it. Now I'll come to some vague comments. Give me 2-3 minutes, and you have given us 10 questions. I have to answer at least 5. So it's your fault. No, the questions are there. You cannot escape them. Now, the first thing is, I'm very happy that you presented Rangarajan and company, because nobody is talking about what happened between 87 and 92. And this is why NGOs can start something. It will never go to scale unless the government is involved. And unless the government has champions in the government to involve. Without those champions, nothing would have happened, as Bakshi explained to you. You have to take the decision. If you don't, forget it. You will be forgotten also. So, these are 2 requirements that I challenge you. Therefore, okay, I'll cut that short. Now, just to make a few comments, because I think this will help to, and I just wanted to add one thing to Rangarajan's discussion. He's my guru. But there was a big discussion in those days, should India start a finance company exclusively for microfinance, like Grameen Bank? And the strong decision was no. The public sector banks and banks will do this job. But we need something in between to really bring the 2 together. Otherwise, you would try to fit a round peg in a square hole. And that was the SAG movement. SAG movement was to integrate people into the banking system. Financial inclusion started long ago. But on the terms of the SAGs, not only of the financial inclusion. And because of the terms of the SAG sector, 3 decisions were taken, which I have said, but I think are so important, which has not been recognized. One, to lend to unregistered groups. And I attended the meeting, the entire law department was against it. How can we get the money back? How can we take them to court? Rangarajan said, if they are keeping accounts records, they are association of persons. The second point was bulk loan. Nanda was the one, and Bakshi and all I can't mention all the names. To give a bulk loan, the entire banking was on individual loans. It's gone back to individual now. But that bulk loan gave the group the tragedy. And third was, okay, just 2 points more. Is access, I must just mention, you are asking, is access to credit a problem? Not quite. But one, the cost of credit through MFIs and BHGCs is a problem. If you are lending at 25, 20, over 20, can I go in for an investment? Let us be frank about this. Can I go and invest in anything at that rate? Secondly, multiplicity of groups. Please. I work in Karnataka. I have Sri Shakti groups, Swashakti groups. I have NRLM groups. I have NRLM, you breaking other groups to form new groups, otherwise you don't get subsidy. This has to stop, NABARD. Please. This is a mess. Everybody who gets up starts a new group. What is this? So now you have, the result is the same woman is a member of 4 groups and getting benefits from all groups, and we say, oh, so many people are getting loans. They are members of 4 groups. NABARD has to take a stern action on this. I'm fed up with this. Third, fixed recovery rates. The rural sector doesn't work on fixed recovery rates, please. So these are 3 that this thing. Graduation of clients, just 1 minute. Now you say graduation. This is as usual like God. Every one of us interprets God, Ishtadeva. What does graduation mean? Today we spoke about graduation from groups. Yes, let the self-help group remain. It is not necessarily to be a finance institution. The women said, we want to meet, sir. These men all go to liquor shop. They have a place to meet. We would like to meet in self-help groups. Let you become a Rotary Club. Secondly, graduation of what? Of size. There is graduation of size. Although the average loan is 35,000, I have gone through a lot of loans. This 1 lakh, 60,000. But that if you graduate in size, the risk to the borrower increases and the risk to the lender also increases. What are you doing to bring down the risk of the borrower? NABFINS had a seminar the other day. Bring down the risk. To whom? To MFIs. Everybody has seminars to bring down the risk of MFIs. I have not seen a single seminar single webinar to bring down the risk of the borrower. I have not seen. Now, secondly, graduation can be of purpose. If anybody wants, I made a survey of SAG members over 10 years, the loans, and how they graduated from loans for food, for clothes, into agriculture, loans for agriculture, how they graduated, and I have loans to get jobs, but to bribe. They've taken loans to give bribe also. What is the problem? Because the recovery is assured. then, now, in banks, in Panchayat Raj, they've taken. What is the problem? Then thirdly, for releasing mortgage lands, thousands of loans. Lastly, in 7th, 8th year for buying land, and finally for purchase of gold. And once they purchase gold, I know they are no longer poor people. So let us talk. So graduation. Just a point, one more.
And that is the last.
Okay, you brought gold. Are SAG members able to access bank loans? Or yes, but my goodness sake, in general, SAG members can access them through MFI. There's no problem. And did they lead to improvement of livelihood activities? Of course, they led to livelihood activities. But I will not go into that. But next time, if you ask 10 questions, you must give me 10 minutes to answer them. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Srini. I will keep to 5 minutes of the time. I hope there will be a second round. But congratulations to Gigi Mammon and his entire team of Sa-Dhan for organizing this conference. And more importantly, to have this session on SAGs, because nowadays in India, microfinance means commercial microfinance. There isn't that much focus on community-based microfinance or self-help groups. And this is a very momentous occasion in the country because we are celebrating 3 decades of the linkage banking, and the numbers are huge, so I'm not even going to the numbers. And I think all the stalwart names have been mentioned, so I won't go into mentioning the names. But just a couple of course, great tributes to Ella Ben and Dr. Satish, who played a pivotal role in the sector. But also a big shout out to the 14 crore women who made this possible. I think, we all take the credit, but actually the credit goes to those 14 crore women who made this possible. Also people like, we had, Mr. K. Raju, Vijay Kumar, of course, Vijay and Dr. Kotaya names were mentioned. I'm also glad that, Prakash Bakshi and others mentioned the thousands of NGOs, civil society organizations that contributed to the SAG movement. So kudos to them and their contribution to the stupendous achievements of the SAG bank linkage. So I just have maybe 4 points that I'll make, Srini, and then I'll, rest my case for now. Number one, I think savings is so important. Somehow we talk about 1,50,000 crores of SAG loans, bank loans outstanding with SAGs. My sense is, this is the back the envelope calculation. Today the women have around 1,50,000 crores of their own savings. If you go by the numbers, there is supposed to be 47,000 crores in the bank account, and it's normally less than 1/3 in the bank account. The remaining is in the loans to the members. So I'm talking about the women have cumulatively saved 1,50,000 crores in the 30 years, including the interest earned and other incomes that they had. So I think still the banks are doing a 1:1 matching and not gone beyond 1:1, taking across the country. And of course, I think others mentioned about the skewness of south of Vindhyas and north of Vindhyas. The second point, I totally agree, the computerization of the SHGs and the members' data is so critical for the SHG movement to really optimize its potential. And I think if we had the data of the 14 crore women, maybe we are talking about a very different kind of financial inclusion and enterprise promotion. So that's kind of maybe in terms of the vision for the next 30 years that one need to look at. The other important aspect is government being part of the SHG movement. Autonomy and independence of SHGs and their federations has been a casualty. And I think we need to really work, again, Government of India is developing a national policy on cooperation for the cooperative system, and SHGs being part of the cooperative system. How do we make sure that the SHGs have autonomy and independence? I think that is something, and I think, in APMAS, we have tried this system of self-regulation, self-supervision, and how do we make sure that SHGs have annual audit, annual rating, annual elections, so that they function as democratic financial institutions at the grassroots level. That is something that we need to look at. And now that we have almost 500,000 self-help group federations, again, there has not been much recognition to the SHG federations. In fact, next month we have a conference to look at the SHG federations in India and how they can ensure sustainability, self-management, and autonomy of the self-help groups. So with the 500,000 SHG federations, how do we support them? I think Shaji talked about they graduating into FPOs, but that could be one idea. But these SHG federations, how can they become formal institutions? Mentoring and incubating the self-help groups is something that we need to think about. And this is where I feel, I think Guruji Al Fernandez mentioned about the NGOs. Maybe the role of NGOs in incubating and mentoring the SHG federations could be an idea. We have had some discussions with NRLM, and I think while we are at a situation of celebrating 3 decades of SHG bank linkage, neither we are seeing much of a leadership from the NRLM or the Government of India, nor we are seeing much of a leadership from NABARD. And I think this is, in my opinion, the most opportune moment for us to reflect, for us to look at what are the lessons learned, what is the experience, and then how do we go forward in terms of looking at the next 30 years of the SHG movement and how wealth creation can happen through these self-help groups and federations. So I think we still need to spend a lot of time ensuring that the SHGs and their federations help the women to protect their savings in these self-help groups. Thank you very much for the moment.
Thank you, CS. And now I turn to the big dada of SHG financing with what 20% of savings, 25% of outstanding loans to SHGs. So, Mr. Pendsey, what's your experience? If you can pack a couple of questions. Why is it that SBI is not equally forthcoming in certain parts of the country as it does in the southern part? If you can pack that in as part of your...
Yeah. Good morning. Good morning to the veterans of SHG movement and all the doyens and the luminaries. In fact, before taking your question, in fact, you changed the syllabus now, perhaps, but yes. So let me give a perspective on behalf of the bank, State Bank of India. And as he rightly said, we have 1/4 contribution to the SHG movement in funding. But I would go beyond that because we not only give 1/4 of the funding to the SHGs as such, we also fund the microfinance companies. So we are also indirect funding to the SHG. So it should be much more than 35% perhaps. So, but not to take credit, in fact, it's overwhelming for me to be here on behalf of the bank looking at the audio visuals which were shown. I mean, this is something extraordinary moment for all of us to be here celebrating 30 or 30 plus years of SHG movement And there is lot of, lot we can look forward to. It's just the beginning. And let me tell you, the Shaji said about the stress in the SHG account. But as a banker's perspective, if I can, you can allow me 2-3 more minutes. I won't take much time because we are already behind the schedule a lot. Is that although the banks would have lost money in the early years, but if you see today, the country of our size, the population of our size, having survived 3 waves of corona, and the kind of portfolios we are maintaining, we have all banks taken together, I'm talking about the PSBs, the stress is just 2% plus, which is not there. I mean, the NPAs in SHGs as of now are just 2.3 or 2.35%. These 14 crores rural women, what kind of, work they are doing, we cannot have words to describe that kind of work. That a country of our size, surviving 3 COVID waves, you look at the West, what they are doing, and what our rural women are doing. In fact, we are so small, I feel myself very so small, to describe the power of these women, that despite everything, the stress is so less, and in SBI it is even less than 2%. Whereas in many sectors of our funding, we find the stress much more than 2% or 3%, even 5%. So we must salute these women who have brought about a transformation in this country and less glorified. In fact, we're all here celebrating this 30 years, but we need to find some ways to celebrate these women, yes, women, who have done wonders in this country. And we should together find something or some ways of recognizing these either groups or the leaders who have done this. Now, going back to some of the questions, perhaps I was reading your face when our great Al Fernandez was standing and he almost answered all your questions. So I was looking at a student who had changed the syllabus for the teacher. Sorry, did I say anything? No. I'm speaking only in lighter vein. Please excuse me for that. From the banker's perspective, we are more south-oriented in SHG, and rightly so, because it started in southern parts of the country, and the spirit with which it was driven by the veterans and doyens. But I'm looking at a great potential in Bihar now. Some speaker said Uttar Pradesh is looking very up, and there are many green shoots in UP and in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh. As a banker, I am aware about that. As far as the role of commercial banks is concerned, we are with you, sir. Let me tell you. And the rate of growth of State Bank of India last year and this year, we are looking at a possible 30% year-on-year growth in the portfolio which we have in SHGs. That's the rate at which we are growing. And let me tell you, I will also preempt some of your questions because we are running out of short of time, that women have really graduated from a meager small savings, typical SHG groups, to the groups which are capable of absorbing large amount of credits multiple times. And a graduation from SHG to microfinance, that is the theme of this conference, is very much visible, and that is how we should take, that is our view. That is what I feel, because we have to keep this basic umbilical cord of SHG alive. But we have to give some leeway to groups who have already graduated or super graduated to take up some kind of their own activity. And I'm sure that they can stand the competition. One of the speakers said from the bigger companies, they can definitely stand, because today is the role of collectives. If we engage collectives, then we can definitely have a situation where these micro enterprises will survive and become very, very strong. The commercial banks are very, very positive towards SHG and at SBI. In fact, we are running a pilot with NRLM for funding the individual women for formation of their own enterprises. So it's a very elementary pilot we are running, but the bank is successfully doing it. And we are always positive with you, whatever. And the last suggestion which I want to make is that we need to have some kind of working group to discuss this. on a longer perspective, and we can maybe, working
The
group.
right person next to you.
Yes, yes, yes. And NABARD can do it, or under chairmanship of NABARD or leadership of NABARD, we can do it once in a month or once in 15 days, a digital connect as such, so that we can really evolve the thought and then take it forward. That is the way forward, I think. Thank you so much.
It's a good suggestion. I'm sure that Mrs. Leivang has taken note of this. I have a few questions to ask these panelists before we conclude the session. But if you all have any questions, I would like to prioritize that over what I have in mind. See, please put up your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, and the entire panelists. It has been a very enlightening discussion. What has been happening in this journey, it's good that we are getting together to celebrate the SHG movement, its history and its productivity and what it has achieved. But it is very clear that on the field, in the market, there is a dissipation of the SHG movement. The more active NBFC MFIs who are in the market and commercially very successful have definitely moved it to the JLG model. And let me be very frank, I've worked with SHGs, with JLGs. JLGs are more groups of convenience. They are not social institutions like SHGs. And it is important to protect and preserve this institution. And there I think what Al said about, capacity building, about somebody to continue to support, I think that is missing, which NABARD was doing very actively earlier. The creation of new SHGs, maintaining them, capacity building for them. Unless this is an ongoing process, this living institution may dissipate. So I think that is very, very important and needs to be really addressed.
I'll put this to you. No, I'll get to you. The question is the classic group bonding on which we started off this, the affinity and homogeneity part, is it possible to continue to work on that? First you have a quick 1 minute answer.
The quick answer is, the assumption is that the self-help group is a financial institution. It is not a financial institution. Never started as a financial institution. It became a financial institution, is fine. It is a social group of people, so it can continue, but not necessarily to take finance alone. We found that after 3 or 4 years, individual members have accounts in the bank, and they are going to the bank and taking loans. Long ago, this happened in the late 80s, not just today. So it's not necessary.
My understanding of your question is this, that the first model, I think Bakshi sir had mentioned the 3 models of the SAG formation. The first model was the bank-led, and then we had the second model where it is the NGO-led. You're talking of the comfort level which was present then under the NGO-led model. Well, the changes have happened. Today the SAG bank linkage program is largely led by the NRLM, right? So their model is different. Now if we look at the numbers, 60% of the SAGs which are savings linked with banks, as of, I'm talking of the latest data, these are under NRLM. NRLM is around 72 lakh and the NULM is around 5 lakh, so 60%. So what happens with the NRLM infrastructure is what is largely influencing the further spread or growth of the SAG bank linkage program. Having said that, we still have the 40% where, like, I think that would be the south. We have the Sri Shakti model of the southern region. We have the Mission Shakti of Odisha. So there are spaces which are still left where NGOs can still bring in their strength to closely handhold and strengthen the SAG movement. I think that is, yeah. That's what, yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I think there are two levels of nurturing that can be possible. One is the self-help group federations. If they are capable, if they are vibrant, if they have the capabilities, they could incubate, nurture, and monitor, more importantly, the self-help groups by doing maybe annual audit, annual elections, so that these are vibrant groups. The second nurturing, I totally agree with you that we need to look at some kind of a strategy where the NGOs, particularly those that are now involved in promoting FPOs and other kind of institutions, nurture the SHG federations so that the foundation is still maintained. Because, you know, a lot of places, the SHGs are becoming notional. The federations are becoming maybe more prominent. So we need to ensure that the foundation is strong and that nurturing must continue at the SCG level. So NGOs can play a role. Totally governmentalizing such a program has the risk of, you know, bureaucratization, maybe even some level of corruption that may enter into the system. So I think that is politicization. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess the point is the good times when you were so totally involved from SBI in Maharashtra. I recall those days. It's very difficult to bring that spirit in the SHGs the way it was that time. Yeah, it's become a financial process, to some extent maintaining discipline and all that. The Panchsutri is more about supply-led discipline, not the group influenced feeling for each other. Going to be tough to mandate it, given the shortage of time at the group level. But then, let's try and see to what extent nurturance can. Yeah, Dr. Chintala, you had a question. 1 minute, please. When people stand in the mic, like when you went, I was afraid.
First of all, thank you all for giving me this opportunity. And now, since I am out of government, now I can be very vocal also. First of all, SHG, I think as Alsa was telling and everybody sitting on this one, actually SHG was a self-help movement. It's not that maybe the steamrolled to be by somebody. Now that original SHGs were very, very popular because the women with their needs, they came together, they formed the groups, and that is their felt need, and it was a democratic institution. And I was opposing, even when I was chairman, also opposing that maybe the steamrolling of the SHG movement by institutions like NRLM, where absolutely there is no diversity of the promoting institutions. Now the biggest trouble right now is, if a government organization wants to do the thing, actually now they have that wherewithal, but at the same thing, whether they have that kind of a social skills to look into the needs of the people as to really why the people have to come. Now it has become a target-oriented. So in that process, what happened was, this SHG movement in 30 years has become a kind of a homogeneity has been brought. It's not that homogeneity of the group, but the homogeneity of the steamrolling of the SHGs all across the country without knowing the perspective and the context. So that's why I feel that in the next 30 years or 40 years, if the SHG movement has to survive, I think we have to bring back the local civil society organizations back, because they are the ones who got that kind of a knowledge as to really what exactly this particular group of women want. And the second thing is, we are celebrating quite a lot, maybe the 30 years, it's fantastic. But thing is, how many people we have covered? In the 140 crores of population, we have close to around 70 crores are women. And you take out the girls and also maybe a few other people. So still 40 crores of women are in the stage of economic kind of activity, of which we have covered only 14. So the scope is there 3x of the groups. And at the same time, despite all the efforts of both SHGs and also MFIs, the average per capita loan for the member is today, including MFIs, it is just 17,000 to 19,000 rupees. Tell me one enterprise, because we want everyone to become a micro entrepreneur. Tell me one enterprise where with 16 or 20,000 rupees an enterprise can be started. it requires minimum 50,000 or even beyond. So that means actually this 1.5 lakh crores which we are talking about, it is just peanuts when compared to the scope which we are having. So I feel that now the forum, because it's a very, very because many people are there, I think we have to take this one to the next policy level with the government, with the Reserve Bank and others, saying that we have to cover minimum 40 crore of women, not 14 crores of women. And we have to enhance this per capita loan from this 20,000 to 50 or 60,000. And the scope is then it is around 12x than what we are doing right now. And that should be the thing, I think, the discussions in the next forums, as what I think Shantanu was telling, there should be a kind of a working group. The working group should be very productive. I think now we have to take, if the $5 trillion economy has to be the realization, these 40 crore of women also have to contribute, and that is where I think we have to work with these SIGs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chintala. Thank you for some what you call future-looking comments, which I think panel will also delve in. There was one hand there. I'll take one last question. Yeah. Mic takes 1 minute to travel. We are concluding it in another 5 minutes.
Good morning to the esteemed panelists. This is Professor Anita from IBS. I just have a couple of observations. One is when we are saying NGOs, NGO MFI financing is a challenge which everyone knows. So what is that panel would suggest? That is one question. Second question is, when we are looking at promoting women-led enterprises, what is the capacity building that we are providing at the ground level so that we can take the inputs from the ground level and work on them and take it to the next level? Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Leivang, you would like to deal with that? The question is, NGOs are finding a challenge to get involved in promotion financing. Second is women-led enterprises. What kind of capacity building efforts are available?
Let me start with the capacity building exercises that you had inquired about. NABARD, I think, as is at the start of the SAG bank linkage promotion in the early years, I think we have relentlessly pushed capacity building, awareness, sensitization of bankers, training of SAGs, SAG leaders, SAG members, NGOs, and so on, all stakeholders, including government departments and any other institutions which were part of the ecosystem. We still are doing a lot in the capacity building. I think one of our eminent speakers had also mentioned, we have the micro enterprise development program and the livelihood enterprise development programs. These are aimed at equipping the matured SAG members with the required skills to graduate to micro enterprise units. These programs have been going, the micro enterprise units training, I think that has been started from 2006, and then we introduced the livelihood promotion training programs in 2015. A quick study, in fact, was done to check the efficacy of these two types of training programs, and the settlement rate hovers between, I think, 58 to 60%, which is not bad, looking at the kind of ecosystem in which the SAG women have to, start their micro enterprises. Of course, the feedback also is that 90% of the SAGs had marketing issues. So, and SAGs which took up farm sector activities, they had lesser marketing issues. There was always a ready market for their products. Those which took up the non-farm sector activities invariably had marketing issues. Yeah.
Now I turn to the last section. I thought originally okay. Then I won't have your last section. I will probably wind down.
This may be the vision. Yes. 1 minute each.
Sorry for just interrupting, Srinivas. I had a couple of questions, but I'll confine to only one. Basically addressed to Mr. Shantanu. very quick point. Wonderful to hear that State Bank is doing so much. But if you, banking sector as a whole, whatever the zeal and spirit was there, I think that is missing. That part is quite understood. So what we need, the changing times, given the so much of pressure on the bankers from different frontiers of financial inclusion, I think what Gigi has mentioned yesterday, we need a phygital approach. And Mr. Saji also talked about digital approach. So how do you combine touch and technology? So my sense is that whether bankers are looking at to scale it up, particularly State Bank as at the cutting edge of technology, front end of the branch staff is the touch part. And you have a retail hub-like structure, technology hub, which provides the processing part, connecting to e-Sakti sort of thing of technology. So is there any thinking in that? Maybe in your good suggestion of working group, you can think of that, how do you connect the front-end touch with back-end technology? I think that will scale up with all those safeguards in place. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I mean, if I may sum up in next 2 minutes because we are running out of time, this is one of the thinking at the bank level, which is already going on, to have a tech-driven platform for the SHGs, where we integrate so many things and make the life of our women very, very easy. And we are working on that within the bank also, but if we can really engage into a working group, and it's very easy for us now with the digital meetings or the meetings over MS Teams, that once in a month we meet and decide on the course of action. We can really have a way forward in next 4 or 5 months. We can put a timelines for that also. So physical is the way ahead, not only for other customers or normal customers. SHG are an integral part of, our clientele, and we are surely working on that. I cannot tell you beyond this in the open forum, but we are already on a project working on that kind of digitalization. And we are all talking about funding, but funding is not the only part of connect with the SHG groups, as the great Al Fernandez also, and right from all the audio visuals we saw. It is only one of the portion of the SHG movement. The affinity, the homogeneity, the industriousness, the financial literacy, the digitalization, all take a larger portion in addition to credit. Credit is just one input of the SHGs. So I feel that we can really work together to find a way how to evolve, how to protect, as Chintala sir said, that our basic core needs to be protected, that is without any question. But we need to find newer answers to the challenges, because we got large numbers to cater to. 40 crore women, if we have to rope in, then we need to have some kind of phygital answers to it, and we will definitely evolve the solutions towards it. Thank you.
Right. I think I have each of you talk about 3 bullet points. We had a lot of things said with a future orientation. Things like credit referencing, building digitization, strengthening federation, building them as intermediaries, converting some of them into FPOs, training and strengthening people in enterprises. Can you list out 3 things, just as bullet points, no explanation, as to your wish list for future? Start with CS.
Yeah, thank you. I think I just didn't want to come up with anything new, but last year we had this Women's SHG Federation conference in Hyderabad in November, and they came up with this Vision 2030, and I'll just say that and stop there. So the vision was the creation of wealth in an equitable, gender-just society that enhances quality of life of women and their families. That is through SHGs and their federations, to evolve into autonomous, independent, self-reliant, sustainable, resilient institutions owned, managed, and utilized by women, strongly supported by enabling ecosystem for the SHGs to realize its full potential of social and economic transformation. That's what the vision is. And we have another conference coming up next month, 16th, 17th. And we hope that women come together to celebrate, and they come up with the future vision. Thank you.
Thanks, yes. Mr. Pendsey.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, I mean, one of the suggestions which I wanted to make is a working group which already made. That is one point. One more point is, as rightly said by my colleague from NABARD, is that we are there from demand side, the supply side. But from the center to the north of this country, we need to build, I mean, capacities or the demand sides in states of, say, Gujarat and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and West Bengal. Yeah, these states have equal amount of industriousness or the enterprising ability. So if we can build some kind of infrastructure, and that can also be part of the working group if it is allowed under the leadership of NABARD, that will be really great. And one more thing is the micro enterprises. Why we believe that it is the way forward is that as women engage into SHG movement for 30 years plus now, there are aspirations of various groups, either individual capacity or collective capacity of metamorphosing into an enterprise, and we should give way to such aspirations so that they can also become big and become role models, how a movement can evolve into or metamorphose into keeping the basic cord intact into very good, I mean, evolving into enterprises. So that is the way forward, I think. Thank you so much.
Mr. Leivang. I hope you have only bullet points.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a person of few words, and old habits die hard. Yeah. So, NABARD's experience I will share. We have been engaging with NGOs for a lot of our skill training programs. Experience, however, sadly says that with all their good intentions, NGOs are not the best persons to, expect them to give the skills, the customized training programs that our matured SAGOs need. So we need to bring in sector specialists, sector experts. We need to bring in the private sector experts in this. Now, the importance of training programs, awareness, creation, sensitization of banks especially, and especially the newly minted branch officials. This cannot be emphasized enough. They are the face of the bank at the rural level, and that has to be continued. So much of social capital has been built, so there cannot be any let up in sensitizing the branch managers. And lastly, with all respect to the ongoing universal social mobilization efforts that are happening, but are we including the bottom of pyramid poor? I think this is a question which we need to introspect on, and we at NABARD are also looking into this. Let's see what can happen.
Yeah, and?
Well, 3 points. I don't like bullets, but first is I agree with the poor. If you think you have started SAGs and they've included all the poor, you're mistaken. I'm now talking about exclusion from SAGs. There is a lot of groups which are not included in SAGs, and we have to study that, and the NGOs have to take up that as a challenge. The second is areas which have been, where you don't have the self-help groups and finance, which you have referred to. My point is, you have to do something there. You need to encourage local small initiatives to start developing. You cannot do it from top. That is important. Look at good people, honest, who are doing it locally and encourage them. Napkins can do that, I think. Second bullet point is cost. To me, the big issue is cost of collecting repayments. We have not done. Yesterday, somebody suggested UPI, try it. But the SAGs were played a big role in repayments. And that is where we are lost. So we don't have security. Perhaps when you start getting bigger loans, you must talk about security, then you become a gold loan agency. I have no problem. But the point is, that is a crucial point. And once you exclude that pressure, then what is your security? And if you have no security, obviously your risks are higher. And how do you cover those risks? Wait with those risks. Technology is one. Is that the only one? And the third point is, please, as you are all saying, people are going for larger loans. You are focused on SHGs, yes, but those who are going for larger loans, what support are you giving them? This is my question. You supported SHGs, please support large group people going for larger loans, 2 lakhs. I find even with the Mudra and all, that's above 5 lakhs. The crucial lending group really is 2 lakhs to 3 lakhs, or 1.5 lakh to 3 lakhs. That is what we need to look at. They have risks, they need skills, post-loan involvement and in investment.
Thanks, Al. I'm really going to conclude the session after attempts over the last 10 minutes. I just wanted to say one thing. This session we had a problem of, there is so much to say, there is so little time. It's very symbolic of the SHG movement itself. You see the large numbers, there is so much to do, there is so little time and so little resources because there are a lot of people out there wanting us to have done this yesterday. The second larger aspect, when you reflect over what all has been said from beginning to now, the lot of progress has been made. This is one of the underreported women-centric programs where we didn't have a gender focus to drive that. They are there, and we did several things well, bringing mainstream banks into putting small loans on the ground and recovering them, like Al was saying earlier. But also in the process, what we are now doing, we are romanticizing excessively what happened in the past. 35 years back, 30 years back, what was possible given the then set of social circumstances, that's not something we can replicate today. The changes that have taken place, other institutions have taken that on board. They have moved on. In the case of self-help groups, are we sufficiently introspecting on what went well and what did not? I would also say there is a general tendency here to celebrate all the successes, but there are no parents for the failure that have occurred all along. So the government, banks, all the promoting agencies, the NGOs, NABARD, the kind of working group Mr. Pendsey suggested, can we take stock of what went wrong and what could now be done to rectify some of that? There are several groups which are there having a savings bank account. They have done nothing for the last 10 years. The point that Al made, the excluded groups, these are included groups but excluded effectively. So can we also spare a thought to all that as we go along? So acknowledging the problems of the past, finding ways ahead, and of course the strong focus on innovation, which Dr. Prakash Bashi talked about, maybe provide some ways of making this work, not exactly the way it worked 30 years back, 25 years back, but in new ways, digitized, more organized, and maybe more skilled women bringing opportunities on the table and progressing along. Thank you all for your patient hearing. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Mr. Srinivasan, may I request you to please present mementos on behalf of Sa-Dhan to all of the panelists here. And I'll request Mr. H.P. Singh, Chair Sa-Dhan, to kindly present a memento to Mr. N. Srinivasan for chairing the session, moderating it so flawlessly.
No problem. You only push me down. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we end this third plenary session. And ladies and gentlemen, like we know, Sa-Dhan has tried its best to be a platform for new initiatives. And once again, we are going to be signing an MOU for an health initiative with Meadow Plus. I'm going to request Mr. Neeraj Chandra, COO Meadow Plus, co-founder and CEO of Meadow Plus, and once again requesting
today, when India is being globally talked about for its achievements.
Mr. Gigi
Today,
Mammon,
when
ED
the
and
world is
CEO of
moving at a
Sa-Dhan,
very fast pace,
please join us on stage, requesting everyone to kindly
we still
remain
have
seated
few issues to
and
address
witness this
for
moment
India
as
and its
an
healthcare.
MOU is exchanged with Meadow Plus,
70% population of
a new
India
health
lives in
initiative.
villages,
We
but
have
only
Mr. Neeraj
20%
Chandra,
of
co-founder and
healthcare
COO of
infrastructure
Meadow Plus,
manpower is
and
in villages.
Mr. Gigi Mammon,
Despite fresher
ED
food,
and CEO Sa-Dhan, now exchanging that memorandum of
active
understanding, a new initiative,
5 years
a new
lesser
health
than their
initiative
urban counterparts.
by Meadow Plus.
Someone had to address this issue. It was the absence of corrective
Ladies and
information.
gentlemen, can we all have a round of applause here as this MOU is now exchanged?
Hospitals
We request everyone to please be settled.
tenants and not the absence of their ability to pay.
We have another little presentation before we break for tea and networking. Ladies and